Hey everyone, Mark and Steve here.
Before we get started today, we want to let you know about Dare to Connect, our new online interactive video platform.
For less than the cost of a therapy session, you and your spouse get live access to both of us 3 times a week.
Each 30-minute live group support session provides interactive mentoring and healing for addicts, spouses, and couples.
If you're loving our podcast and our unique style of bringing you recovery, you're going to love Dare to Connect.
To learn more, go to daretoconnectnow.com. We're looking forward to seeing and working with you. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast. Morning, everybody. Steve and Mark here coming at you from the PBSC podcast today. It's happy, I guess it's too late to say Happy New Year now. We're a couple weeks in.
Oh, yeah, we're way in.
So I was going to say Happy New Year, but that is now belated.
We are past the halfway January point.
Yeah, it's true. Gosh, the year's already flying by. It's good to be with you guys today. We've got a good topic for today that is a little bit of a shift from stuff that we've been doing in recent weeks. Last week, if you recall, we just wrapped up a 2-part series on betrayal. And this week we wanted to talk about this concept of entitlement as it applies to addiction, right? And entitlement's an interesting word. You know, as we were getting ready for this today, I thought I kind of thought about not any one client in particular. It was almost more thinking about myself. I remember being in that addict, mindset and in that place of, there were times where I legitimately, I think, Mark, had convinced myself, more than I'd probably want to admit, that I was somehow actually deserving, right, of acting out or actually entitled to, like, this was something that was my right, I guess you could say, or what have you, which is a really, I mean, I don't think I stayed there very long, but I'm sure I visited that place and definitely skirted it. I mean, especially from that excusing place, I think all of us, I don't know that you can carry on an addiction, right, without some degree of thinking that this is somehow okay, or
well, and as people are listening to this podcast, it'd be really easy. Like, I remember back to my addiction years, if I'd have heard what you just said, I would have been like, screw you, and would have turned off the podcast. It's like, right. We immediately go into, beating up the addicts again. Okay, let's get out our whips and start whipping the addicts.
Yeah.
But if you really stop and step back and try to receive this in the way we're intending it, there are lots of ways that we in addiction feel this sense of entitlement, right? There are ways that we make excuses. There are ways that we enable our continued addiction behaviors. Yeah. And that's not to beat us up or to say we're broken, weak, perverted, loser idiots. It just means that there are a lot of reasons in our daily lives that are a part of us, our survival, coping, that fight, flight, or freeze part of our brains, lots and lots of reasons that part of us can come up with why I have to act out in this addiction, why I can't let go of it, why there's no other solution for me. There's lots of reasons why we become entitled. Mm-hmm. And it's not, you don't just take it and make it an automatic thing of shame and dismiss it because, we're beating up the addicts again because we're using the word entitled. No, there's lots of very legitimate reasons why the brain will take us there.
Yeah.
And so, Steve, let's talk about those for a minute because, I felt entitled or desperate or I had no other choice, or there was no other answer, or this is my go-to place. There were lots of reasons why I was in that space, that headspace.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Yeah.
look at them.
Yeah. No, I'm probably the one that's freshest on my mind. Our Dare to Connect program that we have for couples. We film that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Once for addicts, one group is for spouses, one group is for the coupleship. And this morning, Monday morning, we actually, that's when we're recording. We actually recorded. We did an on-site recording. I was at my father's gravesite. The anniversary of his passing was over this last weekend. And so when I think about, and we had a really good session on there, we'd love for you guys to come check out the program. By the way, there is a 2-week free trial you guys can check out with that. If you go to daretoconnectnow.com, we'd love to have you join us. But as you're bringing this up, I think the biggest one for me was, from a spiritual perspective, right? I really took on a sense of entitlement of, God keeps making these bad things happen in my life, and I keep struggling to do good things, but no matter how many good things I do, it doesn't really seem to matter. And this thing makes me feel this acting out. Once I discovered acting out, this makes all those bad feelings go away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I don't have a better way to deal with this. And even though I was raised in a paradigm where that was quote unquote wrong, and we won't talk about the right or wrong quote unquote today, but even I was raised in a paradigm where that wasn't generally acceptable. I use that as a way to feel, I guess you could say, entitled, right? To that behavior. If my dad was around, I wouldn't have to cope with these things, but I have all these hard feelings and no one to turn to. So this is what I do now.
Yeah, and that was a gigantic reason for me for decades. Was I just felt like there was no other way for me to cope with all the hard stuff in my life. Right? I've tried to cope. I've tried to use, I remember the endless, for example, purchasing of positive mental attitude programs. And, the big joke I have, if you look at my shelf, it was filled with the next magical program that was going to save me from all of this hard stuff in my life.
Yeah.
But it just kept failing, and it kept not being the magic solution and not working. And where would I end up going back to every single time? Back to my tried and true, reliable, powerful, instantly accessible outlet, which helped me to feel better for a moment. So I didn't have any other way to cope with hard stuff. This was it.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm entitled to go do it because there's nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and in my case, and maybe some guys can resonate with this. I know this is really twisted thinking that Steve's throwing himself on the table here, but for an addict, sometimes this kind of stuff makes sense. It really, in a way, as I look back, I didn't see it at the time, but it kind of was a way to, I don't know, give God the one finger wave.
Oh, sure.
For lack of a better term, it was just like, I deserve this because you've screwed me over, and I don't have what I need, and I keep getting, the shaft. So forget it. Like, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah. You're going to treat me like this. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll go find my own solution because I can't count on you.
Absolutely. Well, and I know that this is an issue, for many of the guys listening. I think I know many of my clients over the years, at least at times when they've gotten in that headspace where they're feeling a lot of pain, or when they feel like they're being, they've been hurt or wounded in some way or another, they've used acting out, be it with a spouse or otherwise. Well, this is how I'm going to, show you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or at least not even show you, but, in a more vulnerable, distorted way. It's still not vulnerable, but I want you to feel what I'm feeling.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So. Yeah. And you can see entitlement be flooded by resentment really easily.
Yeah. Lots of roads that this can kind of come from. Right.
And another one that I hear a lot from guys I work with, and I was in this, I found myself in this quite often. My wife isn't sexually responsive. She's not giving me enough sex. She's not doing it in the way that I need. Right. I'll have guys who will say, it's just become this boring missionary position. There's nothing else. And I just can't live like that. So I have to go find it someplace else. Entitlement comes into the picture with that mindset.
Absolutely. So there's lots of ways in which this can happen, right? There's so many mechanisms. For a good way to maybe look at this too are the ways in which we kind of quote unquote give ourselves permission, right, to act out or to carry
Mm-hmm.
on an addiction or to,
Mm-hmm.
engage that way. All of those, all of those things are maybe that's a good way to kind of broaden the viewpoint at it. So the question becomes, right, as we look at this, what do we do with this, right? We're caught in this pattern of being stuck looking at this from that lens of, well, this is something I, deserve, or, this is my state of being, and this is me, this is what I do. We addicts, is the longer we engage in our addiction, and not just our addiction, right, but the thought patterns associated with it, the more those thinking patterns become ingrained. And they kind of become a reality. So how do we break out of it?
Yeah, and part of what you said is I've tried everything. I've tried everything to break out of this, and nothing works. Nothing works permanently. So it's impossible. So I'm just going to settle myself into this. Just accept it. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Got into that, right? Hopelessness is a thing that gets us into a place of entitlement.
Sure.
What am I supposed to do to feel better? Or I remember in recovery, you all expect too much of me. I'm supposed to journal and check in as a couple and go to 12-step and do therapy and this, and I'm supposed to do that. It's like, what life am I supposed to have? And so I would start to get resentful about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this final one was, I just need to be free to be me. You all just need to let me express myself and be the expressive, free me. And stop putting all of these restrictions on me, these requirements, and what I can't do and what I shouldn't, blah, da, 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 da. So yeah, there's like 1,000 reasons we get into this place of I'm entitled, or I have no other choice, or this is just what it is, or I've just sort of settled with this, right? Mm-hmm. So now the question is, now what? If you're in that space for whatever reason, and you do still have at least some little molecule of desire to come out of this, now what?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a couple of key ways you can go about this. For me, as I look back on my recovery and the most effective ways, as I look back on all the bad ways in which people and myself tried to get out of this place of kind of entitlement or deserving of this, I think that there is probably the most effective way to break out of this is starting by, it's with that humanization, right? Mm-hmm. And that empathy positioning in terms of asking kind of two important questions. The first is the externals, right? So these people in my world, externals are always a side benefit, but when it comes to authenticity, the externals matter to us. So asking ourselves, in terms of my world and the people that I value most, and not even just the people, right, but the relationships, the goals that I have, my trajectory as a whole within those relationships, et cetera. If I look at, the kind of relationships that I'm wanting to cultivate, right, and the kind of person that I'm looking to show up as in those relationships, if I look at those relationships in the context of this acting out, how does that entitlement or the ways I'm giving myself permission to act out, how does that mentality and the resulting actions from it, the acting out and in my compulsion, how does that impact those people and those relationships?
Yeah. The most important relationships in my life is this acting out, this entitlement, this settling in for these behaviors. Is it bringing me closer and more connected to those people, or is it driving me or them away?
Yeah.
Right? It's important to get that real, that raw about this. Okay. Which direction is it moving me? Right. So you ask yourself about that. And then of course there is the relationship with self.
Yeah.
Is it bringing me closer to what I consider to be the real me? Right. I talk with my guys about the quote, true self. What is the true self? I'll often have them ask a really philosophical question which is, what is quote, I? What is me? right? Who am I? What am I? And is this whole addiction acting out thing, is that bringing me closer to that or moving me away from it? Right?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
The happiness, the connection, the fulfillment, the success, the peace, all these things that I really want in my true core self. How does this fit or not fit?
Yeah.
Now here's where this becomes tough. When you're stuck in addiction, and especially with the origins of addiction, childhood traumas, a lot of the ways that we develop shame and unworthiness and all the ways we beat ourselves up, you can get to a place where you feel like this addiction is all that you are entitled to. I don't deserve anything better. I don't deserve to have close, intimate, connected, fulfilling, beautiful relationships in my life. This is about the best I can hope for. Yeah. It's going to these sexual outlets, this pornography, and all these other ways that I act out. That's all I deserve. I'm a duplicitous, rotten, unworthy, ridiculous, I've tried 1,000 times to break out of this. I just keep coming back. So all I deserve is to just go numb out.
Yeah, this is my estate. This is there's kind of that popular way of looking at entitlement, right? Which is almost kind of a narcissistic approach of, it's all about me and this is what I deserve. Mm-hmm. But there's the other kind of underbelly of that we were talking about before, right? Where it's, I'm doing this not from a place of like entitlement in the sense of like, my needs are so much more important than everyone else's, right? Oftentimes it's from that place of this is literally what I deserve. Mm-hmm. Right. Given the person that I am and the things that I've done and the ways in which I've hurt people, I deserve to just be numbed out and tuned out because I'm not deserving of those relationships. This is
the best that somebody like me can ever hope for.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember getting to that place of hopelessness and just sort of resigning myself to this.
Totally.
Where it's just like, whatever. Okay. Yep. This is it. This is good. This is as good as it gets.
Yep. So yeah, it's all about asking yourself, that question in kind of both ends, right? Just not just that popular lens, but asking yourself, is that something that I really do deserve? If I look at my authentic self, if I separate my past actions, however grievous or however negative or however bad they are, right? That shame-based self from my true self, the person that I'm trying to become, the person that I am deep inside. And I look at that guy, is it living in harmony, right? And can I not I make changes there? Because that's where you have to begin with working on this, right? There will be, at the end of the day, especially, we talk often on this program about, the moral question and the limited impact that it has on these types of discussions when you're talking about addiction, right? There are many well-intended groups and people out there who, from the best place that they know how, I think will try to impose the right or the wrong on this and how evil acting out is or bad or whatever the case is. But the moral question, the moral argument, really, in my experience, and Mark, I think you would agree, it just doesn't carry long-term weight. Where that change really happens is when we are able to see the impact that it is having on us for better or worse. And then we start to make changes and make new choices and take action from that place, from the, what am I wanting my life to look like?
Yeah. And can we get to the place where when we talk about entitlement, perhaps I am entitled to some really good things in my life. Absolutely. Perhaps I'm entitled to have wonderful, real intimacy. Perhaps I am entitled to seek for healthy outlets. Perhaps I'm entitled to uncover and begin to confront and look at the ways that I've been traumatized and broken in my life. And perhaps I'm entitled to heal. And perhaps I am entitled to have some happiness and some peace and to feel good about myself. Maybe it's time to look at entitlement from that standpoint, as opposed to this other traditional way that it's so often looked at, right? What do I deserve?
Yeah.
What do I really yearn for and long for in my heart? And can I have that? Because I'm a valuable, amazing, right? Eternal being in person, right? I deserve and am entitled to good things because I am, because I exist.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to start, guys. The usual tools that we talk about on here. I know they're the ones that are the hardest to use, right? But journaling and connecting with people that you trust and really starting to flesh this out, and examining this, am I, are there areas in which I do exhibit this quote unquote entitlement, either through that popular lens that we talk about often or through the one that we've just kind of described. And then just starting to make little shifts in terms of, looking at the thinking and examining it and considering something different.
Mm-hmm.
What if there really is something out there that might be better? Right? Maybe there's something out there more than this way that I've always done it. So
yeah, exactly.
All right,
well, everybody. Well, we hope you have a great day. We again encourage you to come over for more in-depth work, and to where we really drill down and get into a lot of specifics and help people in our Dare to Connect program. Come over and check that out at daretoconnectnow.com. And we'll see you next time on PBSE.
Sounds great. Have a good week, guys.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.